Welcome to the next episode of Spilling the Tea in Studio D. This is it's been a while. Yeah, since we've been in the old studio.
Yeah.
We usually take our show on the road to the schools, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. We've been out and about for a while.
I guess we could have done it with Barney here. Our guest today, by the way, is Barney Saltzberg, right?
Yes, he got it.
Yeah, I've been practicing
for 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, forever.
Yeah, that's right. And I guess, with that being said, you can go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself as my chair continues to sink over here. I hate this chair. But all right. But so if you will, Barney, just jump in. Give us a little background. I guess you're a children's author. So
I think so. Yeah, I am. I am a children's author. I write books for kids. Although I'm a big believer in you're never too old for a kid's book.
Sure.
Right.
And I'm an illustrator, so I do my own artwork. I'm also a musician. I'm a guitar player. I've recorded 4 albums of kids' music.
Wow.
I did an adult album when I turned 65 called If Not Now, When?
Right.
And I used to write songs that were on the PBS Arthur show.
Oh, okay. I got
A lot of my songs have been heard, but no one knew I wrote them.
Right.
Oh, that's really awesome.
I've been doing that. So my first book came out when I was 26.
Okay.
And I just turned 69.
Wow.
And I've done in the ballpark of 50 books.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm visiting from LA.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, we didn't just randomly go out on the street and say, hey, Barney, come into the podcast. So you kind of tell everybody what you're doing here.
Well,
Jenny.
But he's from legit LA. That's Los Angeles. A lot of folks around here.
Louisiana?
No, Lower Arkansas.
Yeah.
So we just have to clarify that. Yeah.
No.
You don't want to be from Hogwaller or something like that. We want to give you credit.
Boy. No, I don't know anybody from there. Might like it. I was born in Los Angeles. I always say I want to die somewhere else. But at this rate, I have grandkids, so I don't know if I'm going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, so you're here today with Jenny.
Yeah.
She brought me to, originally I was going to do an event tonight, but I guess because of my fame, people were afraid to come and nobody showed up. So I canceled it. Yeah. And so I went to some Head Start programs.
Right.
Visited some kids today.
Awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
And brought your latest book in, right?
Actually, the book that I came with, the program here, the name of the program
is Positive Discipline.
Is that?
I think, isn't that
That's not who brought me. I don't think so.
Conscious Discipline? I don't remember.
Yeah. It was Dawson. It was
yeah. It's a program through us here at Dawson.
Yeah, it's an offshoot of the educational cooperative.
They brought me out, and they bought copies of my book, Beautiful Oops, to give to all the kids.
Right.
So last night I signed all the books.
Aww.
Oops happened. I travel all over the world.
Right.
It's the last thing I expected writing books. I just thought I was going to have a farm and a barn. I was going to create art and music, and they would just send me money. But then they said, you have to show up and talk. And, in my travels, I show images, and one was a sketchbook that I spilled a cup of coffee on. And I was not happy because it was a really nice green sketchbook, and I had this brown stain on one side, and then it leaked underneath. And when I looked at it long enough, I took out a Sharpie and I made a coffee blob monster on the top and a gorilla profile head on the back.
Right.
And then my son locked a dog in my studio. I had been working on a collage for a book called The Flying Garbanzos. And we had this big black Labrador, and she got locked in the studio.
Oh, wow.
So she climbed up onto my desk trying to climb out of the window and stepped all over this piece. And I had spent a lot of time on it, and I could not erase paw prints. And I didn't want to start over. Maybe I just came from being lazy. And I realized I could cover each paw print with a cloud.
Oh, okay.
So I would show those images in my travels, and teachers consistently said, can you teach how you fix your mistakes? So I was sitting in my studio, and I tore a piece of paper halfway across and went, oh, mouth of an alligator. And then I gave myself like a scavenger hunt. What could I mess up?
Gotcha.
Spill, tear, and then draw. So it's an interactive book, and I sold that to Workman Publishing in New York, and it came out in 2010.
Okay.
And a fun aside is I got to meet and become friends with Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Jamie was in my house when she saw what they call a book dummy. It's a mock-up of the book. And she was saying, this book's going to change your life.
Oh, wow.
So I told my editor, and my editor said 2 things. 1, would she write a little blurb for the cover?
Mm-hmm.
And 2, would she be my best friend?
Right. Yeah.
So I can ask her about 1. And I was really uncomfortable even asking for that.
Sure.
And sheepishly said, believe me, if you don't want to do anything, don't worry about it. She texted me a blurb in 30 seconds that was so beautiful about the book, and they put it on the cover, and I do think it helped give it some recognition and visibility. And last year, I'm blanking on her name now.
Melinda Gates.
Wow, you knew exactly where I was going. That's good.
Yeah.
Melinda Gates said it's one book
that was some high praise. Yeah.
One of 3 books every child should read. My phone started going off the hook when that happened.
Wow.
Yeah. And I got to sign a book for her and didn't get to meet her.
That's a pretty good endorsement.
Yeah, it was great. So, and then Jamie and I did a book together 2 years ago. Once the Oops thing happened, she would text me photographs, and I would stop doing whatever I was doing and draw on them on my iPad and send them back.
Wow.
And we did a book called What Do You See? And it's a conversation in photographs. And the takeaway from the book is more aspirational right now in the politic department. But the idea is 2 people can see the same thing and see it differently and still be friends.
Right. Oh yeah. That's a great storyline.
That is awesome. Much needed.
Well, I did do a little research on you, but I think one of the neatest things that I read was early on how your mom gave you a sketchbook versus the traditional coloring book.
Yeah, she didn't believe in coloring books. She said, why would you color other people's art, make up your own?
Wow.
And in my talk, I show a photograph of my closet, has a shelf of all the sketchbooks. She kept them all.
Oh, wow.
And I keep thinking there's a book in there somewhere that I can make into a story, but it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
But I do think it helped develop my imagination.
Right. Yeah.
And she was definitely pivotal in that.
How has that helped you, not knowing how old your kids are in their development? I mean, is that something you pushed forward?
Oh, I think just as a natural extension of who my wife is and who I am, they have that for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I would do things with my kids where I'm a big believer in squiggle drawing. So you take a piece of paper and just like test it out, and then give it to someone else and have them turn it into something. And for my kids, it was, I don't play chess. This was chess.
Right.
So
Sure.
like my son was like, give me a harder squiggle.
Yeah.
They never said I can't do something with it.
Yeah.
And I think what that kind of planted early on is anything is possible.
Oh, yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's very important to teach not only your kids but kids in general.
Absolutely.
Is to walk through that fear of failure, if you will, and basically failure is one of the greatest teachers that I've ever encountered.
It is. Unfortunately, I'm sitting here in the Dawson Education Service Cooperative. I don't know how it is here, but in a lot of places where I go, there isn't room for that.
Right.
We have testing, and we need to get the grades up to a certain level.
Right. Yeah.
And there's a right and a wrong answer.
Right.
And we lose a lot of people in the process.
Sure. Right.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Right. And that's where we try to encourage, even the seasoned teachers is, remember the reason you got into this for the first, test scores, obviously they're mandated, they're important, but making sure that we're meeting all the needs, social, emotional, of the kids, that's still paramount.
It is, but I've traveled enough around the world and this country to know what we're dropping on the shoulders of teachers.
Sure. Right. Agreed.
And what we expect them to do from morning till the bell rings at the end of the day is impossible. I and I'm sure it's here too, but spending time in migrant farm country in California where 3 families are sharing a house and the kids don't know how to eat at a table.
Right. Yeah.
And so you're expecting them to, and they're not having books modeled, being read.
Right.
That's everywhere. And
so important.
There used to be this thing where they'd say, read 20 minutes a day, and I kind of compared it to eat your vegetables and then you can have dessert. So there's something immediately wrong with your vegetables. It's like, well, you have to because you get something good. And if we start saying, well, if you read for 20 minutes, I'll let you play a video game, or I'll let you. Well, then it makes reading a chore.
Exactly.
And you're on your phone texting, and your kids got to go read. They're thinking, "What's wrong with this picture? I don't see my folks reading."
That's right.
You know,
yeah.
so
Right.
reading with each other
Right.
is another story.
Right.
Right.
So, as far as education for you, I guess growing up in California,
Yeah.
as far as college, where'd you go?
I grew up in LA in the 60s. I was miserable. I had a lot of, in those days, they didn't diagnose kids with stuff.
Right.
Now I would have been given Ritalin and whatever, and put in a special class. But my mother was a reading and studies skills counselor at UCLA. So she gave me a lot of tools to kind of survive.
Right.
But I dyslexic and had a lot of issues. So I loved math. The only time I loved math, and you were a math teacher, was when it rained because we could draw on the math paper.
Yeah.
I loved PE and I loved art.
Right.
I didn't like music because it was an auto harp and songs I hated.
Yeah.
I
you
did
never
not
heard.
expect to go to college. I played in a band. We had a manager, and that was my path until the other guitar player said he was going to college. And I was a huge Beatle fan, and because John Lennon went to art school, I decided to study art.
Yeah.
So I went up to Sonoma State, which in those days was called Granola State.
Granola.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took Frisbee. That was one of my classes.
Yeah.
For real.
I took bowling.
See,
I mean,
well, there you
it's equivalent to Frisbee, I guess.
Bowling ball's a lot harder
Yeah.
to fly.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, I studied art and music in college. Came back to LA, trying to pursue my music career, and then disco happened.
Oh,
So I kind of had
yeah.
to make some pivots.
Yeah. Disco happened, all right.
It
Yeah. Being a music lover, I mean, it's not like I can play or anything, but all kinds of genres. But I don't know. I'm still a little out there on disco.
It was popular, and it was a great place to dance and meet women.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But it was not my thing. And,
Yeah.
and look at it. If disco hadn't happened, I never thought about this. I probably would be a children's book writer.
Well, that's true. Yeah. Kind of
There was
push it that
something
way.
good about disco.
See,
man.
there's a reason for everything.
Oh,
huh?
yeah. So, what was your first book?
I did 2 books at the exact same time. I was working on a book of visual puns, which was called Utter Nonsense. It had a cow on the cover, and if you look closely, the black and white cow had a map of the world on it.
Oh, wow.
And he was wearing tennis shoes.
Yeah.
And I did a book called It Must Have Been the Wind, and that was a picture book.
Right.
And I took a class in writing children's books, and the teacher kind of shepherded me through on this book and took it to New York, and Harper and Row bought it, which was kind of unreal to have right out of the gate, my first summer. And while I was in New York, I literally knocked on doors. I just told this story earlier, where I would see that the Harper and Row bookstore was in the building where the publisher was.
Oh, okay.
So being, naive and full of possibility, I would just knock on doors and ask where to go to get a book published, and it worked.
Yeah.
I sold a book to McGraw-Hill of cartoons, and they were a educational publisher.
Sure. Yeah.
But they took my book. It sold about 4 copies,
Yeah.
but it became a calling card that I could go into unpublished.
Sure.
And the Harper book also just didn't sell well, but again, I had sold 2 books in a matter of a summer.
Right.
Wow.
So I took that as a sign to continue.
So what year was that?
That was when dinosaurs roamed the earth. That was 1980 and 81. Those books came out.
Well, the reason I ask is just probably with technology and how the process of writing a book, getting from start to finish, has probably changed quite a bit.
Maybe technology-wise, but
the thought process, I'm
the
sure.
The thought process, yeah. I mean, the interesting thing for me as an illustrator and a writer, a book like Beautiful Oops, which we should have brought one in here, I could not have sat down to write it.
Right.
I needed to do it.
Right.
So it was folding paper, it was smearing things, and the concept that I read about after that book came out, something I love, it's thinking with your hands.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So it's sort of an intuitive thing.
Sure.
And if you sit there waiting for an idea to happen, a lot of times it just doesn't.
Right.
So to just pour some ink on a paper and go, oh, wait a minute, I'm going to move this, oh, I see something there, and then make a flap over it, so I built it. So that technology is,
sure.
Yeah.
Well, and honestly, it kind of goes back to your, sitting down, taking the time to read a book or read it out loud for, a younger child. But, to encourage that creativity. especially. I think the younger we encourage that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to put books on my wife's belly when she was pregnant and read the kids that way. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I taught math, and you would think that my daughter, 9 months of hearing that, it didn't help. She wasn't a big math person, but
I wish I were. And as a musician, I know that there's a connection between music and math, but
I'm always jealous of people that have the creative side, because I don't have. I mean, I can write poems. That's about
That's
it's
a
creative.
huge thing.
It's but they're not great. But I mean, they're okay. They're okay.
She writes rhymes. I would.
Yeah, rhymes. I do
it's
rhymes.
Not like that stuff she's cranking out as poetry.
No, it's not like it's not like anything fantastic. But I am I'm jealous because my brain just does not function like that.
Right.
But I was just even thinking back as a math teacher. That's part of a teacher's job, is to the kids that are not into math, or they might be into music, or encourage them to get into their what they like, their thing that they love.
hopefully. I took an art and math class, a combination, and I learned about Durer, D-U-R-E-R, Durer, he did engravings.
Okay. Yeah.
Below the time period, but it's like hundreds of years ago. But he used a magic box, is it called, where it's like 9 numbers.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. I can't think
So
of what
it's
it's.
in every etching or not engraving that he did, there's a magic box, and it's got 9 numbers.
Wow.
It's 3, 3, and 3. And if you drew a line numerically, to match them, and blew it up over the picture, it showed you the composition for his artwork. It was amazing to see.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not doing it justice,
But going back, I mean, I just think the reading to the children, parents reading to their kids, I mean, I think that's so important. That's something that, we did, even though I'm not a huge reader, but I like to read. When I get into something that I'm interested in, I can't put it down, but it's just super important to read to children.
absolutely.
And it's just heartbreaking, like you talked about, that some kids do not
It's
get
a
read
lost
to at
art.
home, don't have books at home.
Well, I did, the last group I just saw this afternoon, I opened up my backpack where I kept some books, and I opened up the wrong zipper, and there was a sweater. So I said, let's read the sweater.
Yeah, that's right.
I wanted to show them,
Yeah.
even if you don't have a book in your house, you can make up a story about it.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So, but it's getting a parent to feel comfortable doing that.
Right.
But as you said, not feeling like you have that, it's like working out. You build up a muscle. And the more you play with that
Right.
creativity,
Yeah.
it starts to come.
Yeah.
I just believe you
Yeah.
have to just keep doing it.
You do. I mean, and I knew the importance of it. So, of course, we had Sarah had tons of books, and we read all the time. And, but she reads a little. I mean,
It's hard. We have instantaneous entertainment.
Yeah.
we do.
100%.
That is.
Well,
you're right.
I thought about this on my drive in this morning. AI, is everywhere. And what are your thoughts on it and how it affects possibly the creative process?
Well, I know people are freaked out about it, and I know people who are losing jobs because of it. That said, it's here.
Right.
The genie's out of the bottle.
That's right.
I use Photoshop for my art a lot, which is a computer program, and they added on the beta version AI.
Right.
I personally was like, wow, what's it going to do? And something really simple. I have a book which is about bananas, and I'm using photographs.
Right.
And in one of the pictures, I needed to make the banana taller.
Yeah.
Well, you take a photograph, you're going to stretch it. It's going to look terrible.
Sure.
To hand piece it together would have taken me forever.
Right.
I cut it on the computer, moved them apart, put a lasso around the whole thing, and it has a little prompt. What do you want
Right.
to do there? I said blend.
Yeah.
In 10 seconds,
Yeah.
it finished it for me. Also
Right.
did a watercolor, a digital watercolor, but for some reason I cut off a piece and it had a straight edge instead of this really beautiful feathered kind of watercolor.
Right.
I circled it and said blend. It matched everything.
Yeah.
So in those cases, it's amazing.
Right.
If you said, I want to write a book about a microphone,
Right.
and it's going to be for kids and it's going to rhyme. It'll do that for you. Is it
Right.
a good book? No.
No.
Do people care? I'm not sure.
Right.
So, I keep thinking about, living in LA, I know a lot of writers for film and television.
Right. Yeah.
Is there going to be an executive going, I'm going to have the idea and get AI to do it and just pay somebody to clean it up?
Yeah. And it's kind of like, embrace the technology. One of the most recent examples, Randy Travis. I don't know if you've heard his latest country song. But what they did, they took every song that he ever recorded, dropped the vocals out of the background, and there was a song that was written, and they were able to piece together his voice. It's been, I think they said, over 2 decades since I'm sitting here assuming you know who Randy Travis is.
Of course.
Yeah. So, but hadn't had a song in 2 decades because of a stroke. He's basically nonverbal. But to hear that song now, it's just like Randy Travis is sitting.
Went and recorded it. It was crazy.
Paul McCartney, John Lennon duet. And it's a song John Lennon never sang.
Wow.
And I had goosebumps listening to it. So,
Wow.
Yeah, it's I just got an email for a video AI program, and you type in the prompts and it makes a video for you.
Wow.
So I'm thinking about my friend's son who's a filmmaker. It's his job on the line.
Yeah.
So the reality is it's here. We need to find a way to use it.
Right.
If you're a high school teacher and you've got to have your kids write an essay, I guess there's software to let you know if they're using it, but you're going to have to find ways to have them either edit
Paper
it
pencil.
better or find a way to use it in a positive way. I don't know what it is yet.
Yeah, right.
But
you're right.
I think embracing it within reason.
What I always say is if there were guys who were blacksmiths putting shoe horses on, and then somebody drove by in a car. They saw it right there. Their job was over. Get with it.
Get with it. Yeah.
And it's like we're here now.
That's so true.
People I didn't want to do digital art at all. I thought no. And now it's like, look, I can send my art. I don't have to go to the post office. I can put it in Dropbox and my editors get it. And they want to change because I have things in layers. I can move characters around.
Right.
There's a lot of freedom it can give you too.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I say. I mean, in those instances, I mean, you either kind of, like you're saying, you get with it or you get left behind, to a large degree. But I think being able to pull that in, no matter what you're doing, and use it to enhance what you're already doing. And I could see the fear part of, like you're saying, we'll give it a prompt and we're done.
Yeah, if you leave it at that, hopefully your standards are such that you're going to want to go back and go, well, a lot of this is good, but let's clean it up. I just listened to a talk where the guy said, AI won't take your job, but if you learn AI, it'll make you more hireable.
Yeah.
And I think we have to. It's here.
Yeah, that's true.
I was thinking when you were saying that, I never thought about it growing up in LA where we don't have a lot of houses with front porches.
Right.
But they said front porches were like a staple in the South.
Sure.
People sat on their front porches and said hello to their neighbors.
Right.
When air conditioning started, people started going inside and not talking to each other.
Yeah, that's right.
And then we stopped building it, so it's a progression.
Right.
It's what happens.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
That's not a great one, though.
But the way you said that, instead of being fearful of taking your job, take your job to the next level. Kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I say that until they say we don't want your next book. We wrote it already.
Yeah. So as far as being an illustrator, which came probably the illustration piece, I guess, obviously. Yeah. But the process of writing a book, is there any kind of magic sauce or
if there were, I'd have my minion speaking with you today.
Right. Yeah.
Because I would be so rich. No, there isn't a secret sauce, and there's no for me, no formula. I mean, I get ideas all the time. Sometimes I'll draw while I'm thinking about it. Who are the characters? Sometimes I'll write the whole thing first, and then decide. Yeah. Sometimes I'll draw some characters and go, I should have a story to go with them. There's no pattern.
Right. Yeah. So there's probably sketchbooks everywhere.
Well, now it's all on my iPad.
Oh, well, yeah.
See?
Yeah.
And the good news and the bad news is you can take it everywhere. Bad news is it's always with you.
Yeah.
You can't get rid of it for
Yeah.
you can't get a break.
But I'll just leave you with this. There's a lovely book that Abrams put out on the art of Maurice Sendak, where the wild things are, and he was the godfather
Right.
of picture books. And he talked about the difference between illustration and illumination. And I'd never thought about it. And where you want to add something to the picture, to the story via the picture, that's not necessarily exactly what the text. I'll give you an example. I did a book called Mrs. Morgan's Lawn. Growing up in L.A., I had a neighbor that every time my ball rolled onto her lawn, she came outside and took it. Not a nice neighbor.
Yeah.
And one of the lines in the book said, somewhere inside of her house must be a closet full of balls. What
Right.
would you do with all of them?
Yeah.
And so in my sketch, when I pitched the book, I drew a boy thinking with a thought balloon over his head and a closet full of balls.
Right.
My editor said, this is a boring picture. You told me in the text there's a closet full of balls.
Right.
I can imagine it. He liked the part of the sentence that said, what could you do with all of them? And I go back to
So then-
literally the drawing board.
Right.
The picture in the book, same text, somewhere inside of her house must be a closet full of balls. What could you do with all of them? But the image is the boy imagining her as a witch, reading a book that says great ball recipes, and cooking them in a cauldron.
Yeah.
But it never says it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's the marriage of images and text
That makes
to me that make a book sing.
Yeah.
And that's what I spend my. And there are times when you do draw exactly what you're reading,
Right.
but it's nice to add to it.
right.
Yeah. And so obviously, you're probably a little bit like me in the sense that your mind never shuts off, right?
This is true.
Yeah.
Are you still married?
Yep.
Yeah. How's your wife?
31 years. Yeah.
It
Exactly.
makes my wife crazy.
Oh yeah, mine too. And
Poor Tanya.
and-
Poor Tanya.
And this
That's
is
what we
where
say.
it gets really crazy. So I'm old school as far as, and again, I was working in radio and listening to songwriters, that kind of thing, where they keep journals by the bed.
Yep.
And if I've got one, I've probably got 30 laying around.
Yeah.
And someday when I'm dead and gone, we have one son and a daughter-in-law. I mean, it'll be trash or treasure.
I was just
but
saying,
there'll
it's going to be a nice bonfire.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, but when thoughts come, whether it be preparing for a presentation to do a motivational speech, whatever the case might be, I go back but as I get older, I'm thinking, which journal is that in?
Well, that's a problem. I have a book coming out in the fall called The Smell of Wet Dog, and it's my first book of poetry.
Yeah.
They sound more like yours, so I don't want him to read it. They're simple. And the sequel's going to be a cat book, because why not?
Right.
And I'm not a cat person.
Right.
But I started trying to do it, and I wrote 27 poems in 3 days.
Wow.
And one of them happened while I was sleeping.
Yeah.
I dreamt the entire poem.
Oh, my
At 4 in the morning, I got up and I typed it in my phone.
Right.
Wow.
So
That is so cool.
yeah, I was shocked. And of course, my editor said, "You're a dog person. These are the subjects you need to cover if you're going to write about cats." So now I have one about the litter box and things. So I went on it.
Yeah, and somebody's even suggested to me, hey, get a digital recorder. I did that, but I've got probably, I don't know, maybe 8 minutes worth of stuff on there.
Then you got to listen to it again.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do that for songwriting. I use the recorder on the phone.
Right. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, and I can send it to people. And it's
Yeah.
good.
How many dogs do you have?
We had up until Mother's Day 2. We had to put our lab down. She was just not well, and it was a sad Mother's Day. We have one now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have 3. And my daughter we would have 20
So would
because she
we.
rescues all of the ones that are about to be put down at the pound. She begged for the last one, which is a 90-pound puppy that is part Great Pyrenees and part hound.
Oh, wow.
And it is the sweetest dog
That's
I've
a
ever
great
had.
combo.
Oh, yeah. He is the
How
sweetest.
old is he?
A little over a year.
He's going to be a horse.
He's huge.
Yeah, he is.
He's huge.
Wow.
He's
I
huge.
couldn't believe it when she showed me the picture of that cute puppy that they brought home.
Oh, yeah.
Till recently.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, that's the same dog.
And it's hysterical because puppies want to play
Yeah.
and jump. And I'm like, he's almost literally knocked me down.
Do you know the old Pinkerton books, the Stephen Kellogg children's books? Pinkerton he was a Great Dane, and
Oh yes.
he was just too massive, and they don't know how big they are.
Right.
Yeah,
They don't. He doesn't
I
realize.
have a book called Arlo Needs Glasses, and it was an 85-pound golden doodle, and he couldn't catch. And so I did a book about a dog getting glasses.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was sad and cute.
So what was your school experience like? I mean, saying you were
Growing up,
dyslexic. That
horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah.
I was miserable.
Yeah.
And a big part of what I do when I speak at schools, and I'll be in front of 500 kids in an auditorium or a cafeteria or whatever, and I'll say, when I was your age, I did not think I was smart. And the amount of kids who privately point to themselves is always heartbreaking.
Right.
But I'm glad they're hearing me, because what I say to them is, I didn't know it as a kid, but there's lots of types of smart.
Yes, there
Because the
is.
school isn't necessarily set up, don't give up.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, and it's hard because they can get it intellectually, but they don't feel it. And I still, those shame buttons pop up. Not being good at math,
Yep.
having to read out loud, all
Yeah.
that stuff. I was stammered, and
Yeah.
the fact that I get to go and talk to kids as an author is
Right.
unbelievable to me.
Well,
Because it was not.
there's a book called Most Unlikely to Succeed. I don't know if you've read the book, but again, the guy ends up actually with a career in radio and doing speeches, that kind of thing. But I guess I really didn't understand maybe some of the struggle until I read that book. But he said the very same thing. When he was called to read aloud, that he shifted gears to the class clown.
Yeah.
And would get in trouble and get booted out.
Yep.
I had anxiety. I hated reading out loud.
It's a terrible thing to do. Henry Winkler from Happy Days.
Right.
Henry was, I say that like we're best friends. I've met him a couple times, but was dyslexic and couldn't read. He read his first book at the age of 30.
Wow.
And so he would memorize his scripts to go in for auditions. So he has a whole series with Lynn Oliver, this other writer in L.A., Hank Zipser, and it's about a dyslexic kid.
Wow.
So, I think kids need to see that. And that's one of the things that makes me, like, I flew in last night. I'm flying home tonight.
Yeah.
But it makes me want to keep doing this.
Sure.
And it's that, corny thing. If I only reach one child.
Yeah.
But having a kid
true.
go, wait a minute, this guy had trouble in school, and look what he's doing now. I hope that comes across.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, like if you could talk even to the teachers, because we're going to have teachers and principals, hopefully, that watch the show. What would you encourage them to do?
Man,
Just
such a huge question.
I know. I mean,
be patient, but you guys are. I mean, that's the thing. When I think, it's easy to come in for an hour and be a star, but to do this, these guys are the stars.
right.
Don't give up on these guys. I mean, I'm asked to speak to. Here's the thing. Find something. I was telling the story. I just dedicated a book to 4 of my teachers, and they're all still alive. 2 are in their 80s, and Mr. Ron Maurer, my 6th grade teacher, knew I couldn't spell. He knew I wasn't going to get a happy face when it came to my spelling test. But what he did was on Thursday nights, afternoons before the bell, he'd give me the spelling list and tell me to make up a story in front of the class, which I loved.
Oh, wow.
He found that he knew that.
He found that in you.
And I didn't realize till I was an adult that he found something that I'd feel good about. It wasn't going to be my grade.
Right.
And so to look for whatever that thing is,
That's awesome.
and that would be it, because it's such a huge question you just posed.
That was really good, though.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Well, and back to the book. I wish I could Dave something. I think, but anyway, as an adult, I mean, a young adult. I guess one of his former teachers, saw him out doing landscaping or whatever, and stopped and said, "Hey, good to see you. What are you up to?" And but even at that age, invested in him. Because, he said, "I can't read. This is probably going to be my lot in life." And she said, "Oh, yeah, there's hope." And she reconnected with him, taught him to read and what have you, to go on. And that's the thing. I think, and I think she encouraged him because she saw something in him, even as troubled as his past was. But that's an incredible
It's
point
hard
to make.
Well, so that was 6th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, actually. Miss Broadner at the time, said your grammar's atrocious, your spelling is terrible, but I like your ideas. write movie reviews. The fact that a teacher even thought about me,
Yeah.
and then to write a paper and not worry about getting red line.
Wow.
But the times have changed. The state testing is so much. Teachers don't have time for this. One of the things that I had teachers say to me is, after reading Beautiful Oops, they made a Beautiful Oops box in their classroom. So any oopses got thrown in there.
Yeah.
And anytime they had extra 5 minutes, they'd say, go make some oops art. But a lot of teachers
That's
don't have
awesome.
time in their classroom for
That
it.
is so
Because
awesome.
they're between what they have to get done through in a day is mind-blowing.
Right.
What they need to do is get more money.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, and I think just encourage. I mean, because I remember even teaching, if a kid was like, "Well, I'm not good at this," I'm like, "It's okay. We all have our place in this world, and we all have things that we're meant to do and meant to be, and to help people."
But the pressure
The pressure is there is a ton of pressure.
Yeah.
There really is.
Yeah. It's not an enviable spot. My brother and sister were both teachers, and my sister was kindergarten teacher in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and she quit when they started doing state testing for kindergarten. She kept saying 5 is still 5.
Yeah.
She wanted out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So,
tough.
could you imagine doing anything else with your life?
Musician.
Musician.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my heart, to play the guitar and to write songs and to sing with people.
So, where did the love for music and who taught you how to play that?
I taught myself how to play.
Oh, wow.
When the Beatles happened, a lot of guys in my generation
Right.
watched Ed Sullivan and went, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And I found that if I spoke with an English accent, girls would pull my hair. They were clearly very successful. So I took that as a sign to continue.
Yeah, that's right.
But it was my bonding. I mean, the guys I play with from elementary school through college. I'm actually having a reunion with the college trio.
Yeah.
Our second performance in 50 years we're doing in June.
Oh, wow.
But we're still connected, and we're still writing songs and sharing that stuff.
Yeah.
And that would be what I would love to continue.
So, any other music in your family or?
My brother played a little guitar. He's now playing. Now he's taking lessons, and he's getting there. It's good. But my sister played a little piano. My parents always had music on.
Right. Yeah.
But I know my first teacher told me to quit.
Oh.
He said, "You're never going to figure this out."
Yeah.
I was terrible.
Yeah.
It took me 2 years to do an E chord without buzzing.
Right.
But 18 guitars in my house now and 5 albums out. It's a big part of me.
Right.
Awesome.
So you say your folks always had music on. What were they playing? That.
Everything.
Yeah.
And they also played a lot of comedy albums when I was.
Oh yeah.
Which I loved.
Yeah.
Elaine, Nick May, and Mike Nichols stuff.
Yeah.
Just fun stuff. But they listened. Well, my brother was really into the Carter family and folk and bluegrass. Turned me on to all that. I still listen to bluegrass every Saturday morning.
Yeah.
It just became part of my routine.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Pete Seeger. I grew up Pete Seeger.
Yeah.
I got to spend a day with Pete Seeger.
Oh wow.
And they a lot of Broadway stuff. My mom loved all the Broadway stuff. Which, as a kid, I loved it. I don't listen to it now, but
Yeah.
it was a lot of stuff.
We usually ask folks what's on their playlist if we were to get in your car, but I guess.
Well, now it's everything. But I'm in the right state. Jason
Right.
Isbell. I'm a huge Jason Isbell
Yeah,
fan.
yeah.
I know he's from here.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to a band called the Brothers Landreth,
Mm-hmm.
which I didn't know about them until Bonnie Raitt just won
Okay.
the last Grammy, and the song that she sings was written by these guys.
Okay.
They're Canadian, and I listened to them on the plane.
Right.
I loved
Yeah.
it.
I'm gonna have to
Brothers
look them
Landreth. I mean, I'm a California guy, so a lot of the music from LA, from the Eagles to Jackson Brown to Little Feat, those guys were
Yeah.
all
Oh, yeah.
and all that stuff, Ry Cooder, all that
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. So before we get out of here,
Yeah.
again, we kind of.
I gotta get on an airplane.
Yeah.
The clock, but that's not a clock.
No, but we try to do a couple of quick hitters.
Go for it.
Okay. What's the last thing you Googled?
The last thing I Googled. What is it called? Wait, she just had me look. We were just in town. I can tell you. The Order of Hoo Hoo.
Okay.
I'd never heard of that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Moving on. So
You asked.
okay, yeah, that's,
You did ask.
I did. Yeah.
You did ask.
So best and worst piece of advice you've ever got.
Well, ever got. It's so funny. I was speaking at Comic-Con once in LA. And they said, "What would you suggest to anybody who wants to be a children's book writer?" I said, "Marry a doctor."
There you go.
right.
Best advice? I don't know about that. I think I've gotten really lousy advice.
Mhm.
I didn't listen to most of it.
Right.
I didn't stop playing the guitar.
Right.
My sister, who I love dearly and is an educator, said,
Right.
"You'll never make a living doing children's books."
Right.
So,
Right.
so
what
she
you're
knows
saying-
better now.
So
You
some of
get
the
to
worst
say, "I told you
advice
so." Yeah.
ended up being the best advice.
I just listened to a podcast, Wiser Than Me. It's Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and
Yeah.
she interviewed Carol Burnett.
Yeah. Okay.
And she said, if someone had given her advice, she did the opposite of everything everyone
Right.
said.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer in if you
Yeah.
have a heart for it and
Right.
just
Yeah.
go for it.
Do it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Do it.
yeah, and I think a lot of times, I think throughout my life too. I mean, when they say you can't, that just motivates me to dig in a little deeper. And
You're like, watch me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, and I heard a guy say the other day, fear can be polarizing, but the minute you spin around and run towards fear, fear begins to fear you.
I did this yesterday. I'm traveling with a guitar, and it's small, but it's like the plane from Denver to Little Rock is small.
Right.
And I knew that if I waited for my number 2 boarding to get on, there'd be no room for my guitar.
Right.
And I thought, do I dare? And before I was talking myself out of it, because I'm a rule follower,
Right.
I was in line with people who needed a little more time to get on the plane.
Right.
They didn't say a thing, and they put my guitar in the closet. But if I had waited,
Right.
I might have. So
Yeah.
it's just sometimes you have to go for it.
Yeah.
I have to say, because I'm going to post a link to this video and to podcast, and I know my sister's going to watch. So you did tell me that I might not be able to do this for a living. You've been incredibly supportive. And she has something in Santa Fe called the Santa Fe Science Initiative, where she works
Yeah.
with teachers in primary schools
Right.
and gets science in the
Oh,
classroom.
that's awesome.
But that's my plug for my sister.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, so
What
you
else?
had to
Any
say
other
something nice
quick
about
one?
your
Yeah.
sister.
Yeah, otherwise I have to.
Well,
You would be in trouble.
And like I say, at the end of the day, if you have someone in a similar situation with you going through education like that, I mean, what's maybe the biggest takeaway you would give them?
When somebody was struggling like I was,
Yes.
don't give up.
Right. Yeah.
Don't give up.
Yeah.
The movie Hotel, there was a book, Hotel New Hampshire.
Right.
The line that they kept saying was "Keep passing open windows,"
Yeah.
which I took to mean "Don't jump out."
Right.
Right.
It
Yeah.
gets better.
Yes.
Yeah, it does.
Give up.
Awesome.
It does. Well, we
Love
appreciate you coming in.
I've
Thanks for having
enjoyed
us.
it. I've enjoyed it so much. It's been
And more
awesome.
importantly, going out and pouring in and to teachers and kids.
Oh, yeah.
I mean that's our big. If life gets rough here, that's what we do. We sneak away to a pre-K or something, get them revved up, and leave.
Good.
So,
Yeah.
That's a good plan. That's like playing the grandchildren before they have to go to bed.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Thank you for having me.
yeah. I
Hey,
appreciate
thanks for
it
coming
very
on.
much. All right. Well, that's going to put a wrap on this edition of Spilling the Tea in Studio D.